What is up, guys? Rick Cacus here, and today, let's just take a look at this clip. Yup, it's gonna be a good one. Welcome to a brand new episode of Raid Versus, the series where we take exotic weapons through the ringer, putting them in every single encounter of the Leviathan Raid and ranking them on their performance. Today we have a weapon that was just introduced into the game, the Whisper of the Worm exotic sniper rifle, the Destiny 2 version of the Black Spindle from Destiny 1. Now, if you guys want to know how to get this weapon, all the steps involved, I've done a video showcasing that stuff. It's linked above. Definitely check it out because this weapon is incredibly powerful. The Destiny 1 version was a part of many raid loadouts. Will this one also be? Well, let's take a look at this weapon's stats and perks. In terms of its stats, it's a high damaging sniper rifle, very low stability, kind of typical honestly for this category of sniper. What really makes this weapon powerful is its exotic perks. The first one is the intrinsic perk White Nail. Higher base precision damage. We're already off to a very good start here. Rapidly landing 3 precision hits will refill the magazine. And it's not from the reserves. That's right, we are pre-nerf Black Hammer days back in D1, and that means if you land 3 precision shots kind of rapidly, you will get 3 rounds automatically back into the magazine. It will not take from the reserves, it just appears out of thin air, which means you can go infinite with this weapon. You can just shoot and shoot and shoot, and as long as you're hitting precision shots, you'll never run out of ammo. Now this is all backed up by another unique perk for Destiny 2, Mulligan. Missing a shot has a chance to return ammo directly to the magazine. And that's just going to make this weapon a little bit more forgiving, and it comes up in some unique spots. So let's move on from there and talk about this weapon's performance in the first raid encounter with the Castellum. Here you simply have to kill quite a lot of adds. Sniper rifles aren't actually the best for this, something like the Wardcliff Coil or the merciless stuff that is capable of killing a ton of base level adds is going to be a little bit better, right? Well, the Whisper of the Worm is absolutely no joke. As you can imagine, a precision shot kills anything. Like in terms of red health enemies, if you have a phalanx, if you have a normal legionary, a single headshot and they're dead. However, this isn't like unusual for this category, this archetype of sniper rifle. It's just doing, more damage than usual. In fact, a body shot will almost kill a red health legionary and then just blow on him basically and he'll die. But then, of course, you have all of the yellow health enemies, the reclaimers that come and try to get your flags back when you're trying to open the door in the Castellum. And against these guys, unfortunately, the Whisper is not a one-hit kill. But a single headshot is going to take down more than half of his health, and then you can easily mop him up with a kinetic or energy, or just another headshot. But of course, this is all backed up by White Nail, so if you are accurate, if you are landing consistent headshots, you can get more bang for your buck in terms of ammunition you're spending with this sniper rifle than any other sniper. Like, no other sniper is going to be as good on your ammunition as the Whisper of the Worm as long as you're, again, hitting those shots. Now, hitting those shots, however, in the Castellum, can be a little bit difficult. Enemies in Destiny 2 do move sporadically. Sometimes you feel like you are guaranteed a headshot and for whatever reason it doesn't register. You have a lot of enemies like jumping from the air and stuff. You have some weird angles. So it isn't like super easy to be consistently getting 3 headshots every single time, and it has to be in a row to be proccing White Nail. But of course, if you do, this gun is absolutely fantastic. And even if you don't, it's still a very powerful weapon. The main thing here is that even though the Whisper is great as a gun, do you really want a sniper in this encounter? Probably not. Something, again, akin to a rocket launcher is going to be better, and even something like the Sleeper Simulant, because in D2 you can point it at the ground and it forks off and you can hit 5 enemies at once. That's definitely less likely with the Whisper. And therefore, in the Castellum, I'm going to give the Whisper of the Worm a 7 out of 10. It's undoubtedly above average, but there are absolutely some better options out there for this encounter. Moving on from there, we have the Gauntlet encounter. How does a Whisper perform here? Well, this is broken up into two different sections. The first section is just killing ads, and the second section is running orbs and shooting symbols. Now, for the first section, it kind of has some of the same problems / benefits of the Castellum. There's a lot of enemies running out of doors. Generally something like, the Sunshot or even the Sweet Business would be fantastic here. And the Whisper can be fantastic, if you're a sniping god, but normally you're gonna miss a few. It's certainly not bad, but it's not excelling here. Later on, however, you do have a yellow health shielded Centurion run out at you, and against this guy, it's fantastic because the Whisper is solar and the Centurion's shields are solar, so one shot just destroys his shields, and then one headshot nearly kills him. I have not seen a single shot of a weapon do this much damage to an ad. It's absurd. So you can just, shoot him once in the head and then go melee him or whatever you want to do, and he'll pretty much die. It's very, very good at taking down that guy. Even if you just want to shoot him once, take down the shield, switch to a primary, it's still going to be pretty good at that. Now, what about the second section? And I do actually want to mention this because when you're shooting the symbols, as you can see, Whisper still procs them, you can still get your people through. Yes, it's probably not as good as an auto rifle, but when you're shooting these symbols, even though it's registering your shots, it's actually proccing mulligan. We had people get 4 shots in a row and not use a single round of ammunition. So if you just want to have a little bit more fun here, the Whisper is actually, pretty hilarious to see who can get the most mulligan procs in this encounter. Just want to mention that. So overall, I'm going to give the Whisper a 7 out of 10 in the Gauntlet. Pretty much for the same reasons as Castellum. It's a great weapon, but not really at home here. But moving on from there, we're going to start to see some interesting things because we have the Royal Pools encounter. How does the Whisper perform here? Well, again, this section is broken up into 2 different categories. Firstly, you just have holding open the plates, killing enemies, and then secondly, you have killing the purple lanterns. For the first part, against the Bathers, this is an impressive 2 headshot kill. And the Bathers have a lot of health. You can rocket them in the face with the cluster bomb rocket, and you still have quite a while to finish that guy off. So a quick double tap in the head, and it's perfect. The way they kind of spawn, you can just really quickly get 2 headshots and they're dead. You don't have to worry about them. So actually really impressed by that. In terms of the other enemies, you just headshot them, they die immediately, but it's a bunch of legionaries and scions. You really don't have this weapon being at home here. That being said, it's not like you have to use a sniper rifle all the time. You can easily use the Whisper on the Bathers as they're spawning. Again, fantastic there. And then switch to a kinetic or an energy to finish off the other guys. So I'm not really going to fault the Whisper for not being fantastic against absolutely everything. But we then have the second part of this encounter, damaging the purple objects. And here there is some pretty crazy stuff happening in a pretty short time frame because this weapon is fantastic against the lanterns. It does nearly 2,000 damage per shot, which is very, very good, especially because you can shoot this quite fast. Now, we did have a teammate that ended up using the Lunafaction boots exotic for the Warlock, so we were instantaneously reloading as soon as we were shooting, which is great. You probably want to do that regardless of what weapon you are using. However, you'll see, and I really went over the gameplay to make sure that this is happening, that sometimes when I shoot, it's not drawing from the reserves, aka automatically reloading with Lunafaction. Because of course, the shots you're getting are not precision shots, so it's not proccing white nail, but sometimes you'll see a +1 come into the magazine. That is actually mulligan. It doesn't draw from the reserves, it just goes back to 3. So when you're shooting these objects, it's actually somehow registering as a miss and proccing mulligan even when you're hitting them. So you can get 4-5 rounds out of a single magazine of the Whisper of the Worm, each shot doing nearly 2,000 damage. Your DPS is going to be actually insane. And yes, certain supers are still probably going to be the top of the pyramid when it comes to DPSing these objects, but I really expect the Whisper to make a lot more people's loadouts for this section, because that is pretty ridiculous what it's doing here. And therefore, I'm going to give the Whisper a 9 out of 10 in this encounter. Very, very good. Now, moving on from there, we have a real DPS check with the Pleasure Gardens. So, for this encounter, there is kind of a beginning section when you're killing normal enemies and beast herders just trying to get ammo. Really not too concerned about how the Whisper is performing here. The real test is, can it take down a dog pretty much by itself? And things are looking good, right? White nail procs for getting consistent precision hits, and the dogs just kind of stand there, so this should be unreal, right? Well, in game, yes, it is absolutely phenomenal. We only got a 12 stack. A 12 stack because we wanted to see how good this weapon was. And as you can see, yes, the dog just stands there and you're capable of shooting and shooting and shooting and never stopping. Never using a single round of ammunition from your reserves, just getting consistent headshots, and this weapon can easily take down a dog with just a 12 stack by itself. I didn't throw a grenade at the dog, I didn't use my super at the dog, it's just the Whisper and it takes it down easily with quite a few seconds to spare. Now, unfortunately, we had a teammate that thought we were leaving the dogs alive for whatever reason, so we just redid it with a 24 stack and it's even more ridiculous here. Like, this thing is chewing up the dogs. I have never seen a weapon do this much damage just by itself. I think the Whisper in this encounter for the Pleasure Gardens gets a 10 out of 10, a perfect score. I seriously can't imagine wanting more out of your weapon. This can do all the work by itself. It is at home here. They don't move. They don't move. So this is going to be absolutely a top tier weapon for this encounter. Like, anytime you do this, bring out the Whisper if you have it. It's so good. But moving on from there, we have the final raid encounter against Big Daddy Calus. How does the Whisper perform here? Well, unlike the other encounters, this is broken up into multiple different sections, and a lot of different things are going on, so the Whisper has quite a lot to prove. Firstly, you just have killing enemies in the throne room. Here, the Whisper is certainly not bad, but again, it's not really excelling. You have a bunch of lower tier enemies, and every once in a while you do have a Centurion, and it's fine against those Centurions. It does a lot of damage per shot, but there is just so many weird angles. Enemies are jumping in the air. It can be hard to land those precision shots on those type of enemies. So it's decent here, but frankly, something like a Wardcliff coil is actually going to be a little bit better, honestly. And I don't even know why I specifically mentioned that gun, but pretty much any weapon that is just not reliant on those precision shots that can just kill multiple enemies and deal with lower tier enemies and higher tier enemies, those are going to be a little bit better. But we then have, several different sections. I stayed in the throne room to keep using this gun. Reports from outside in terms of the skulls is just that it's too slow. You have skulls that move pretty sporadically, and this weapon's rate of fire just isn't high enough. Stuff like auto rifles, something like the Cold Heart even, is just still going to be absolutely on top for the skulls. But what we really want to see is how much damage does this do against actually Calus himself. This is the big test, right? This is where a weapon that's phenomenal in DPS output should be coming into its own. Well, yes, this weapon is absolutely fantastic. Now, my group got 94 skulls, which is definitely good, but you can go even higher, and the Spindle was hitting for 165,000 damage, over 165,000 damage per shot. And even though Calus isn't a perfect DPS target, he does move around, and when he enters the different damage phases, he collapses and so on, so it can be a little difficult to always land those 3 precision shots. It's not too difficult, and you are doing it quite a bit, as you'll see in the background gameplay. You also see me get really greedy and stay when he was shooting at me to get that last shot to trigger White Nail. Don't do that, obviously, but luckily my teammate revived me, and before you know it, it's over. Like, it's over on 3 plates, the beginning of the 3rd plate. Like, we were on the 3rd plate for a couple of seconds and he's already dead. That's insane. Especially when you consider that we didn't have a tight damage phase. I had to revive a teammate on a plate, which triggered it early, so we started DPSing with only 3 players there. The other 3 had to come in and join us later, and we were still able to like absolutely easily 3-plate him. Like, it was a joke. If you do everything right, you could easily 2-plate him and even 1-plate him. In fact, the thing about this weapon is that for every other kind of strategy, you're still always kind of using up ammo. You have rocket launchers in combination with lunafaction boots, but you still have to make sure you have those 6 rockets going into that encounter, and sometimes you can just get screwed out of ammunition. Well, even if you have only half the reserves of this weapon, and by the way, it's capable of having 3 in the magazine and 17 in reserves for 20 of total, which is absurd, and gets 4 rounds per brick, which is also absurd. Even if you have just 6 rounds in reserves, because it's constantly refilling the magazine and pulling that ammunition out of nowhere, you could just, again, go infinite with this weapon. The ammo concerns are just not there. It's so good. This is probably the best weapon I've ever used for DPS and Calus. And therefore, we have the final ranking. If I could give it just a rank against Calus, it would be a 10 out of 10, but in this entire encounter, considering it's not too great in the throne room, not good at skulls, overall, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Like, it's still fantastic. It's so good at Calus. You know, it deserves that high of a rating, but it's not absolutely perfect at everything. And then lastly, we have the overall versatility ranking. This overall ranking is an indication of how good the weapon is in every single encounter. Something like the Merciless will have a really high versatility ranking because it's good everywhere, no matter which encounter. This weapon did struggle in the first 2 encounters and then really found its own. It was absolutely perfect in the dogs, nearly perfect at Calus, so I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Overall, phenomenal weapon. Yes, you have to use your kinetic and energy when fighting just the baseline enemies, but anytime there's anything that you see yellow in the health bar, whip out the Spindle, whip out the Whisper, and you're just gonna crush it. Guys, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed and found this informative. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. And if you guys want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickCacus. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.